Hi, world.
Hello.
So, the Acts 2 journey is something we do as a church. We've looked at a lot of different areas already. We've looked at the core values. We've looked at what it means to be a church that follows Christ. A lot of different things we've gone over. So much. And we're going to continue that today. And we're going to be talking about change. And we're going to be talking about, let's see here. We're talking about change. We're talking about training. We're talking about being a friendly church, how to be a team player, and how we help people encounter God.
Strategic planning.
Strategic planning. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Let's open in prayer, shall we? Would you open us,
Sure,
please?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to come together and to explore these ideas. And Lord, I ask that you lead us and let our minds be open to your ideas for the direction you want this church to go. Lord, I thank you for Pastor Scott and everything that he does for this church, and continue, please, Lord, to protect him and keep him sound in your word and in your will. I pray these things through Jesus. Amen.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with our wonderful videos.
So far, we've answered 3 of our 10 questions. Why do we exist? Where are we going? And how should we behave? Today, we're going to answer the remaining questions related to once a congregation establishes its mission, vision, and values. Now we're ready to talk about a strategic plan for ministry. If the vision is where your church is going, and we believe to the next level for the next 2 or 3 years, and the core values of how we behave, our attitudes, our ministry directives, all those kind of things, then the strategic plan is how we get from where we are to where we need to go. Many churches have cast vision for the church. Pastor will get up on a Sunday and cast vision. But without a plan, it just falls flat. It's just a lot of excitement for a moment, but nothing changes. And that's why this journey is so important, because this session really is critical to our ability to take the vision God's put in your heart and now see it become reality. The strategic plan follows that series of action steps that we build around the functions of the church that we discovered in Acts 2, 42 to 47. Remember those functions were fellowship, discipleship, gift-oriented ministry, evangelism, and worship. By building our plan around these functions, we are identifying our church as an Acts 2 church. 1 Chronicles chapter 28, we're told, then David gave his son Solomon the plan of the vestibule of the temple and of its houses, its treasures, its upper rooms, and its inner chambers, and of the room for the mercy seat. And the plan of all that he had in mind, all this in writing at the Lord's direction, he made clear to me the plan of all the works. This is one of the many illustrations in the Scripture of planning. And it's so important that we understand that. Unfortunately, we have many people, Pentecostal, Spirit-filled believers, that only believe that the Holy Spirit is spontaneous. In other words, if it happens in a moment's time, that must be the Holy Spirit. But I want to tell you today that the Holy Spirit is far more than spontaneous. He's a planner. Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world. How many think that could have been a plan? The Lord is a planner. He knows. Here's what I believe. The Lord knows what your church will look like in the next 2 to 3 years. He has a plan for every church. And He wants to reveal that. And I am foolish enough to believe that you can sit together as a team and hear the voice of the Spirit and respond to the promptings of the Lord and be able to put in place a strategic plan to fulfill the vision God has called your church to. In the previous session, we began working on I dream of statements for each of these functions. Now it's time to begin formulating that strategic plan. There are 5 questions that will guide us through this process. These questions provide us with an outline that any church can use to help their congregation address some of the most critical elements for an effective ministry plan. So now, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is now where we begin to get serious about what is God saying to us. He's given us a vision. We've discovered the values that He wants us to embrace. Now is our time to say, Lord, how do we fulfill that vision? How do we fulfill what you're saying to us? And now we're going to unpack that as we look at five different strategic areas of the Action Church and how we will implement the strategies and the plans in each of those areas.
All right. So, where we've been, talking about why we exist as a church, where we believe God is guiding us, and how should we behave, our core values. And have you guys seen our core values before?
I
Okay.
got one right here.
You got one? Okay,
Okay.
sweet. So that's hanging up in the hallway.
Okay.
The good news is that since we're a part of Life 360, a lot of this has already been done for us. The core values are already established. There are certain things that are unwavering, unchanging, and that's because we are who we are. Life 360, as a main organization, has gone through a lot of what's already in the Acts 2 journey. So luckily, a lot of it's already there. One of the things that Life 360 does is that we have what's called, and this is on our core values, unity with distinctiveness. So we are, number 7? Four. I know it's there. Unity with distinctiveness. So what that means is, as a Life 360 church, we are united with all other Life 360 churches. This isn't something that most people on a Sunday morning, until they've gotten used to being at the church, really experience. And I would say until we do, I would say for the majority of people in the church, they're not going to experience any real feeling of super connectedness with other Life 360 churches, except for things like annual business meetings,
Yes.
and things of that nature. But on my end of things, I meet with them every week. I have a coach that is not only my coach, he's also my accountability. And so the good news is that Life 360 churches, especially the plants like what we are pastor-led churches. And one of the things that people ask about all the time is, you don't have a church board. Well, yes, I do, but it's for Life 360 nebulous. And in all reality, if there's any issues with me, and you disagree with anything that I am doing, I have someone that you can report to. So you can always just go to life360.org. There's literally a phone number at the bottom, and say, I have a problem with Pastor Scott. And then they'll direct you probably to Pastor Tim or Pastor Ted, and then I will get a phone call. So usually telling me, we've heard from someone, and it's always confidential. It's always kept private and things like that. So we don't talk about you guys behind your back, I promise. But that was one of the things, honestly, that drove me towards Life 360 personally, is it being a pastor-led church. My previous ministry in North Dakota, before we moved here, was somewhere between a congregationally led and a board-led church. They hired me under the pretense that it was going to be a pastor-led church. I picked up my family from Virginia and moved them to North Dakota with the idea that it was going to be a pastor-led church. I ran the church for about 7 months with the mentality that it was a pastor-led church. But soon after I'd gotten there, about 2 months after I'd gotten there, they'd changed the board. Like, the board flipped. And so the people that had initially hired me Many of them were no longer on the church board. And other people came on board. They had different ideas. They didn't really pay attention to the whole process of bringing me in or anything like that. Long story short, and this is how I sum it up. I wanted to grow the church, and they saw otherwise. So it was painful. I have no problem with the church board. I have no problem with church advisors. I have no problem with the congregation coming and talking with me. What I have a problem with is whenever someone goes behind my back. So the Bible's pretty clear. If there's an issue with anyone, you come to them first. If that person's not paying attention, then go to another. And my recommendation would be go to someone else in the congregation. If that doesn't pass muster, call my boss. Okay? And trust me, that'll get drugged in front of the church board. I will be read the riot act and all that other stuff. Or they may come down and say, all right, we've heard you, but
This
here's
is why
this.
he's doing what he's doing.
This is why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
So, the individual on the church board that was spearheading this whole thing went about it the wrong way, and he ended up talking with the district superintendent without me expecting him to be there to do so, or any foreknowledge ahead of time. And the district superintendent supported me, as he always had. So, I don't know what's happened to that church, and I've let it go, and I'm okay. But I say all of that because one of the wonderful things about Life 360 is it's not normal. It's not a normal type of situation.
Exactly.
But what I've been led to do, coached to do, in the process of planting this church again, I tend to think of this as like there was already a garden here, but this is a new season, and so we're planting a new garden because of how the process has happened since I've been here. And so I still think of us as a church plant, despite the fact that this is a legacy church that's been around for a long time. I firmly believe if we do things how things have always been done, we're going to get exactly the same result that we've gotten for the past 100 years.
They're not all saved.
Yet. You know who I'm talking about. So, the mission's not over. So, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of stuff to work on. And so that's where strategic planning comes in. It's where the mission comes in. My place right now, and I'd love to hear from you guys, is my vision for the church right now is to figure out what God is doing and jump on board. As I've said to people all the time, and you heard it today, I am not the sole repository of the Holy Spirit. I don't know everything. What I know is what my relationship is with the Lord, what my relationship with Him as a pastor is, and that's it. Anything beyond that, I need help. So what is encouraged by Life 360 is that in the process of planting a church is that eventually there would be a core group of individuals within the church that would essentially be my advisory team. And so what they would do is you guys would have access and permission to speak to, not just to me, because everyone can speak to me. I have no problem speaking with people. But having a position of authority in my life so that me as the pastor, I can then lead, support, and direct as needed in order to make things happen. And a lot of times what that's going to look like is, Pastor, I have this heart for this ministry, and I'll go, okay, when do you want to start? So
That's what you said to me.
yeah, it is, isn't it? So, and it's and this whole thing is honestly, it's a growing. There's a lot of growing pains in this, and we all come from a lot of different backgrounds. And when you guys do ministry, and you're in ministry, sometimes I will frustrate the fire out of you. Right?
He's not wrong. He's not lying.
So, but I hope that through it all we can challenge each other. That iron sharpening iron doesn't ever really feel good. But in the end, that's okay. I'm not easily frustrated though, so I've seen a lot. But balancing the spiritual and the strategic. The only thing I would add in there is also the emotional. There's a lot of things in a church that we can have an emotional attachment to. And sometimes we need to break that stuff. There's a great song that we sing, tear down the walls of my tradition, or break down the walls of my religion. I can't remember the words off the top of my head. But it's like, yeah, let's just break it all down.
Yeah.
Unity with distinctiveness. Life 360, the vision pastor, Pastor Ted's never going to come here and tell us how to run our church. As long as we're doing things biblically, and we're doing things in a way that is along with what the Holy Spirit and the Bible has us to do, go and reach people for Jesus, love people as you love yourself. As long as we're doing all those things, love the Lord your God, we got no problems.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I like
I have leadership, I have accountability, and I have a support system, and they leave me alone as long as I don't do bad things. So, what we need to do is figure out what our distinctiveness is. So, okay? Awesome. Any comments?
No, I'll probably think about this and then have comments like maybe a couple days later.
Okay.
So that's usually how
Well, you know where I
have
am.
to stew over things. So.
All right. So the next video here is going to be on understanding responses to change.
So when it comes to engaging change, we shouldn't think that people are either all in or all out. The truth is that people engage change at different paces, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We were talking about this one day with some ministry friends and began to realize, just thinking about one of the great vision stories of the Old Testament, one of the great change journeys where Moses is leading the children of Israel from their life as slaves in Egypt to an incredible life of freedom in the Promised Land. Now, hard to beat that. I mean, you think about that particular reality, the destination. I mean, who isn't excited about Promised Land, especially when you've lived centuries with no freedom? And certainly we got a great leader in Moses himself. The Bible refers to Moses as one of the greatest leaders who ever lived. And of course, the journey itself is pretty amazing. I mean, there are moments where God shows up with supernatural events that help facilitate the journey, like the Red Sea opening up and water coming out of a rock and quail flying so low to the ground that you could catch them in your bare hands. God shows up, incredible leader, not to mention the provision God made for them to guide them on their journey. The pillar of cloud and the fire that would show them when it was time to move and when it was time to set up camp. But you know, one of the things that's really interesting to discover in that journey is that even with an incredible destination, even with one of the greatest leaders in human history, even with God showing up regularly to provide everything they need, even with perfect direction being provided by their divine leader, still people complain. Understanding where people are at and what it is that they're wrestling with as we lead change. Well, let's go back to that story for just a moment. So we were sitting and talking about this one day. We realized that probably Moses moving the children of Israel across the desert didn't exactly look the way we imagined it or saw it in our Sunday school papers as kids. The truth is, those pictures often were more like a family camping trip, or just sort of portraying something very, very simple, very easy to engage. But the truth is, if there were, in fact, as most estimates would indicate, between 1.5 million and 2 million people, then that journey looked a whole lot different than we would have imagined. In fact, you think about that number of people, and if you do the math, it kind of works out this way. Imagine, if you will, taking all those people and lining them up in rows of 10. Let's say they marched 10 abreast, and let's say there was about 2 feet per row. Can you get that picture? Now, obviously, they weren't anywhere near that organized. They had all of their stuff. But imagine them being that organized, that refined, like an army marching in a parade. If that were the case, if that's how this amount of people were lined up, you realize that line of people would have stretched more than 70 miles. Think about that. What an enormous mass of people. And of course, they're scattered much wider than that. And they've got animals, and they've got all the trappings of their life. They're traveling with their grandparents. I mean, this is a very complex and likely look much more disorganized than that. So probably they're spread out over even a greater expanse. But think about this. Well, let me ask you, how many miles a day can you do in a desert with all your possessions? Could you do 5 miles, 10 miles? For the sake of easy math, let's say 10. That means, in a group of people stretched out over at least 70 miles, that means that from the front of that line to the back of that line is actually 7 days travel. That it'll be 7 days before the guys in the back get to where the guys in the front are today. So what does that mean? Well, that tells me one thing for sure. Where you're at in that line has a great impact on how you feel in the midst of the journey. Because if you think about the folks that are up in the front, well, it's exciting up there, isn't it? Who do you think's up there? Well, these are the people most enthusiastic about where we're going. These are the people that are excited about the journey, that are dreaming every day that just over the next sand dune might be the land of promise that we're headed toward. These are the people up in the front where the leaders are at, where Moses likely spends most of his time. In fact, when I'm at the front of the line, I'm probably getting most of my information directly from the mouth of Moses. I'm engaging the excitement of the journey because I'm up in the front. It could be as well that I have less stuff to carry. I have less to move. That's why I'm able to move more quickly than many of the rest in this lengthy line. But not everybody's up here. These are the people that we're going to call early adopters. And seldom do they make up more than 20% of the people that are traveling with you on this journey with your church. These people are excited. They're believing in a future. They are anxious to get there. In fact, when you say, let's move, they're the first to jump in. And boy, it's wonderful to have early adopters. But the truth is, Pastor, not everybody in our journey is an early adopter. Because about half a week back, somewhere here in the middle is a different group of people. And the journey feels very different for them back here in the middle. We could call these folks mid-adopters. And when the call goes to move out, they don't move immediately. They're not as quick to respond. In fact, this group really doesn't typically move until the group in front of them begins to move. And life's different here. Moses doesn't make it back here very often. We don't get a lot of direct information. In fact, the information we get is generally passed down through the ranks. But every single day we trudge through what everybody else has already walked through. Do these people want the journey? Do they want that destination? Absolutely they do. But sometimes they're a little slow to move. And I can make a mistake as a leader if I think these people in the middle are against the destination simply because they don't move as quickly as my friends in the front. It's just a different journey for them. And it really gets different when I get back here. To the folks that are closer to the back of the line, let's imagine in Moses' moment these friends who are 7 days back. They're a whole week behind the front of the line. Who are these people? Why are they back here? Well, it could be they simply don't move as quickly as everybody else. It could be that there's more for them to move, that they've got more attachment to where we've been than where we're going. It could be that these friends are a little bit less enthusiastic about a future when they're not sure if there's really going to be a place for them. Do they want that destiny? Oh, yes, they do. But often it doesn't sound like they do. There's more complaining back here. In fact, I'm convinced that those individuals who wanted to go back to Egypt in Moses' story probably were the gang that were closer to Egypt than the ones in the front. This is the challenge. These folks back here, they want the destiny. But oftentimes they're not convinced there's a place for them when we get there. When do these friends move? Well, if these guys in the middle don't move until they see forward movement, truth is these guys back here, they often don't move until they're afraid that they're going to be left in the desert. What's my job as a leader? I've got to love these friends. I've got to love these friends. I've got to believe. Sometimes I have to believe for them that they can be a part of that future. I want to encourage them because the truth is when we get to Promised Land, we need them all. We need them all for the battles that await us. We need all of these friends for the opportunities that God has for us in the future. And so when I look at my congregation, I want to realize some of them are at the front. They're excited, they're ready to run, and every time we say this change is coming or this opportunity is there, they're quick to engage. Most of my friends are here in the middle, and they don't move quite as quickly. They need me to keep moving. They need forward movement so that they will ultimately join in, but they may not be the first to jump on board. And these friends back here, frankly, there are a few days as wonderful as for a leader as when you see one of these friends begin to pick up their stuff and begin to move forward with the rest of us. In this journey of leading change, keep in mind, you can't just get there with these guys. It's important that we love and that we believe in these friends in the middle and these friends that are moving a bit more slowly. Ultimately, our dream is that all of us will arrive in the place that we believe God has picked out for us.
If people move at different paces and respond to changes differently, what implications does this have for pastoral and ministry leadership? What might cause some to lag in the change process, and what do leaders need to account for on behalf of those friends to ensure that they can reach the destination God intends for us? What do y'all think?
One of the things when he first started, using Moses and their journey as the analogy, I was thinking those in the front are going to get the best food, the best supplies, they're going to get fed better than those that are in the back. I know they're going to share and pass things along, but those up front, when they're hunting, they're going to come across those animals or whatever first. It's going to be, like he said, 7 days to the back, because if they're all moving together, there's going to be less food. So when it's talking, you're not connecting this, are you? And I'm probably not doing a good job of it, but
I'm catching what you're pitching.
okay. What might cause some to lag in the process? They're not getting the same food in the back. Perhaps we need to make sure that we ship that food faster.
Go ahead.
Like she said, the opportunities,
Yes.
depending on your position. I've seen in other churches where there are people who are almost always in the front pews, and they're always there, same people. And then there's people who kind of tend to stay in the back, and they're always in the back, not because they come late or anything, but when they first get, that's where they go. And then the other people kind of fill in everywhere else where they can. But you have those people who are still, I don't know if I'm part of this. I'm unsure of this, so they kind of stay in the back so that the spotlight isn't on them, so that the pastor up front isn't looking right at them in the front pews, because there's a feeling of maybe discomfort. Because people who come to church either know that they're wrong in life and they need help, or they don't realize it and they're there because they don't know, and when they come to church they realize, oh, I'm a sinner, the spotlight's on, God knows my heart, and they can be uncomfortable at first,
Intimidated.
so they kind of hide in the back, and maybe the whole congregation of Israel in the wilderness, those who are hiding in the back,
Yeah.
were those who were, you know, still a little uncomfortable with all this.
The whole move.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get the analogy. I don't love it because it's not exactly biblical, the analogy, because the Bible laid out exactly how everyone was supposed to be structured and moving. And in fact, the temple was packed up and everyone followed the ark. So they all followed the ark. So the ark is what's in front. And then you had the Levites, and then so on and so forth, all the way down the line.
By tribe, yeah.
But what's interesting is that, and I was thinking about this as you were talking, and as you were talking, one of the things scripturally is that everyone had the same provision. So everyone had manna, everyone had quail, everyone had the water. They had it all. But how long did it take for the message to get from Moses to the end of the line, or who we're using their
7 days.
analogy, for them to go, hey, that stuff that's been growing on the ground this whole time, that's coming up with the dew, that's the food.
Yeah.
And then they're looking at it going, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I mean, it's really cool that the quail are doing what they're doing. And the water, man, it's wonderful that it's made it all the way down here. I'm just thinking, you know, I use this analogy a lot about the water from the rock. But we don't talk about what the water looks like by the time it gets to the back of the line. I mean, obviously there's enough for everyone, because God's provision is enough. But what does that water look like by the time it gets there? Is it
Well-
as pure? I don't know.
So,
That's one of those
are you
questions.
saying that there's a relation to the messaging?
I think,
Because Jethro, his father-in-law,
yeah,
had this great spirit-filled plan
right,
of appointing heads of thousands, heads of hundreds, heads of tens.
yeah,
And that's how it was all disseminated.
right,
So even the people at the back had the head guy, and then they head over him, and they all met together in a group, and then everybody got the message.
right. But even still, we're not talking about cell phones or anything like that, or
No.
smoke signals or anything. They still had to send the message out all the way out to the outskirts. So I mean, let's not even look at like it could have been a week because of straight lines and all this. Let's say they're just wide.
Yeah.
It could still take hours or days for the messages to reach the fringes.
Oh yeah.
And the one thing that they had in common was the pillar of fire and the cloud of smoke, right? So when the cloud moved, everyone knew, well, it's time to go, because you could see that. Whenever the pillar of fire got up and moved, you knew it was time to move. Because that was one central way of communicating to everyone, hey, it's time to go. But if Moses got a message, let's say I give that message to you guys, and then you guys now have to go find amongst 2 million people those leaders of thousands, and those leaders of thousands have to go out and find those leaders of hundreds. We're still looking at hours or days before a message gets out. And so, talking about what you were talking about, I think there is something to that. I think the provision is I think that's the wonderful thing about salvation, is it's available for everyone.
Right.
The gifts of God are available for everyone. All of that is available for everyone. The question is are you going to pick it up? Did you get the message that it's there? And I think that's part of what we do as a church, is we communicate the message, whatever form of communication that is. We as the church, we communicate the message of Christ. And that message doesn't change. It's just a matter of how long it took to get to them, and how long it took for the people that receive the message to adopt the message. Because if someone's walking up to me and saying I should go eat that stuff that's growing off the dew of the plants, or the dew of the ground. I'm going, you sure about that? And then on top of all of that, I went out and I gathered up a bunch of it, and I'm gonna put it in Tupperware and put it in the fridge overnight. But here's the deal: in the morning I get up and it's all moldy and covered in maggots. Well, dang, I'm not gonna get that again. That's disgusting. No. You have to understand the provision is new every day. Okay,
But you have to go and work to get it.
you did have to go to work to get it, yes. But I think early adoption on that would have taken a little while for people to catch on. I mean, their stomachs being hungry would have helped. But I think that's what he's getting at. And those non-adopters, man, those folks just starved because they were dumb. It was right there in front of them, and they didn't do it. So I wonder how many Israelites actually ran back to Egypt. Because they don't say anything about that, but they were belly aching enough. I wonder if any of them actually did.
They probably did.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, not everybody can be in the front line, you know.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, you know. So someone has to be in the back.
True.
Are you also aware of the sacrificial setup that God had for them in the wilderness?
Mm-hmm.
Because they still had the offerings and the sacrifices.
Yeah.
And the highest of all the sacrifices was a lamb
Yep.
or a goat if you didn't have a lamb. Okay? But if you didn't have a goat or a lamb, what was the next level? Turtle doves. Pigeons, turtle doves. Okay? And if you didn't have turtle doves, because you couldn't afford it, not everyone had livestock. If you didn't have that, what could you use?
Pigeons.
Right.
Yep.
Animals, right?
Yep.
But if you didn't have any animals, what could you use?
Green.
Bread.
Yep.
And where did they get the bread? Manna.
Interesting.
God provided the means for you to bring an offering to Him in the manna, which means you had to go without food for a day. But if you were serious about bringing an offering, you could take your portion of manna and you could bring that as an offering to Him, saying, I am giving up my food for the day. And they fasted a lot. I'm giving up my food to appease you, to make you know that I am sorry, and this is my offering for my transgression. He made a way for you to offer for sin. And it was the bread, the manna in the wilderness. Who is the manna, the bread?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
That's right.
So this was a picture
Yeah.
of what Jesus was going to do, being the bread. This is my body, the bread that is broken for you. I provided this in the desert for you as atonement for your sin. You could offer this. You have to fast for a day, but you can still be amongst the congregation, because those who do not make the offering are cut off from the congregation. And if you don't want to be cut off, you can't. He provides a way. And people don't realize that.
Good. So what do you guys think about these percentages?
They may be.
I think it's kind of like a general rule of thumb, but it's not perfect. It's kind of like when I was in school, they taught us the 10-10-80 rule. It's not even really a rule. It's more of a guideline. So you guys know what the 10-10-80 rule is?
I've heard that.
I've heard it, but I can't
So-
remember.
Theoretically, in leadership, 10% of the people are going to love you no matter what. You could be a bonehead and screw up, and they will still love you. The other 10% is going to hate you no matter what you do, but they just won't leave. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And then the 80% is everyone else. And so what they teach us in Bible college or in leadership school or whatever it is is when you are planning, when you're putting things together, you don't target the 10% that loves you no matter what. And you don't target the people that you're not going to make any headway on anyway. You target that 80%. Because if you go after the 80%, then the people that are the 10% that love you, they're going to do it anyway. And you're going to get 90%. Now, you don't disregard the other 10%. You just, when they tell you things about how they hate how you're doing everything and how you breathe and drink soda, you just go, I've never heard that before. I have that phrase. Have I told you about my phrase? Have you ever heard me use it with people?
Yes. Yeah.
I have this phrase I use all the time that is a phrase that I have adopted in my life where someone will tell me something. I don't really have a cogent, logical response, but something doesn't quite hit right on it, and I'll respond with, I've never heard that before. And the reason, I'm not lying.
Yeah.
I really have never heard that before. I've never heard anyone say that before. So, but at the time, I'm like, okay, I have no scripture to come back with. I don't have any real debate to give. So, let's just call that one a push.
Okay.
And typically, that the argument that they present is emotionally driven.
It is.
It hurts
There's
their
no
feelings.
logic with emotion.
Right. So
No,
if,
there really isn't.
I don't know if you've been in like big mega churches.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The 10-10-80 rule, you see about 10% of the congregation is up front.
Yep.
We're all there. And then the very back rows, that's about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people fit in the middle where they kind of fill in to mingle among everybody else
Yeah.
because they don't want to stand out as being in the front or in the back.
Well, that's what the 60% is
Yeah.
here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a majority of them are that middle of the road type of people.
Yeah.
And if those are the people that we should target, we need to make sure that they see how the changes that we're making are going to be successful and how they can be involved in that.
And what our goal needs to be is, look, maybe those mid adopters are never going to become early adopters, but if we don't tap into those individuals and the talents and gifts that God has given them, and they don't act on them, I mean, how many people have died with answers to so many questions in our life, but they never went forward with it because nobody encouraged them? How many dreams died and just never happened? And so that's one thing that keeps me up at night.
For sure.
So, all right. Anyone else? All right. How will we engage new people?
As we have seen, most churches that have plateaued or declined, well, they're in the latter half of their current life cycle. They desperately need new life. Now, not every church experiences a regular flow of guests into its ministries. In fact, most don't. We could get really good at our assimilation efforts. We could totally polish up exactly how we treat folks when they walk through our door, but that's only half the battle, and it's usually the second half. First, we have to find new people to bring new life to our church. So to start a new life cycle, remember this. You got to have new life. So our first guiding question is this: how will we engage new people? New people are the only way you can truly begin a new life cycle. Truth is, 100% of the growth potential in your church is in people who aren't there yet. As new people become a part of the congregation, the church must invest in this new life and ultimately even empower this new life for it to endure. Churches that don't redirect resources to outwardly focused ministries typically will lose whatever new life they might gain. So to find new life, every church needs to identify what we could call engines. Those things that can drive are those efforts that draw new people to the church. What are the engines that can drive us forward as we reach out in the community? Let me give you three questions to consider. First of all, who are your friends? One of the best places to find new friends is among those our people are already meeting and connecting with every day. If you've ever been a part of a growing church, you already know that the pastor isn't the one bringing new people each week. The people are. Remember that reaching people isn't what your church pays the pastor to do. Some churches fire their pastor when the church doesn't grow, somehow thinking that news of his or her excellent pulpit skills should be packing the house. So consider instead Friend Day type events or opportunities for the people to target their invitations. In this way, you can help your people by creating settings that work well for inviting friends. You might remember earlier in the journey, we looked at the biblical function assessment. And what you probably found there is that evangelism was perhaps the weakest or one of the weakest of the 5 functions in your church right now. Assuming that people are going to change that by suddenly becoming more evangelistic on their own isn't as reasonable as we might wish. In fact, one of the reasons we feel more confident in worship and fellowship is that we do those things together. But if people are left to evangelize on their own, well, it's not really getting done, is it? So who are your people connecting with every single day? Find ways where you as a church can be a blessing to what those efforts might be. Second question, who are your church's neighbors? If you're looking for people to love, why not start next door? These folks are right there, just walking distance from your church. If the church people have very little in common with those who live closest to their building, well then frankly no one expects to find friends there. So think about your neighborhood as a great place to make your church's ministries known. And the third question is, what are your church's ministry strengths? Every church has them, even if they're covered up a bit like a valuable painting hidden under the basement staircase. What a church does well needs to be visible to its community. New people are far more likely to find your church appealing when you're doing what you do well. At the same time, those who happen by when we're doing things that we're not as good at seldom choose to come back. So which of the 5 functions could be most effective in helping you connect to people outside your church? Which do you think you could do really well? Some churches are very effective in the use of evangelistic outreach events in connecting with new people. So concerts, rallies, food and clothing drives, other special events targeted at the felt needs of people help them achieve the goal of meeting new people. Remember, that's the goal. Where are we going to find new people? Other church families find their engine in teaching truth. Marriage and parenting events offer valuable help to their struggling neighborhoods. Finance seminars can bring biblical wisdom to a debt-laden community. Counseling ministries offer hope when life has grown bigger than one can manage. Classes that teach English to new immigrants open ministry doors. Recovery groups for the addicted or the abused also help make your church a place that really helps people. There seems to be no end to the possible subjects that matter to real life. Unfortunately, many churches with excellent teachers limit their gifts to the congregation. Excellent Sunday school classes or children's ministries or small group settings never leave the building and rarely contribute to the effort of bringing new life. Certainly strong disciple-making efforts are critical to the congregation, but churches that excel in teaching may also be missing a great opportunity to connect with their communities. People need to know how to live, and you'll be surprised at how many are ready to admit that. Other churches find their engine in meaningful ways of serving their communities. The local YMCA could use more volunteers for its kids' basketball program. The elementary school needs someone to fill the gaps that parents can't make time for. A nearby park could use trash pickup, or you could take a cooler of cold water bottles to the construction site down the street. There could be single parents in your neighborhood too. So finding ways to help them with a parents' night out, for example, can have real impact. When you serve others, you will find new friends, and you may discover the engine that can drive your congregation forward. Other churches can find their engine in their expressions of worship. These churches are blessed with gifted musicians, dramatic actors, or a pastor who excels in communicating with outsiders. These churches see guests return at a very high level. The quality of what they do makes an impact and can provide an open door to the neighborhood and beyond. But unfortunately, many churches concentrate these musical gifts in their church settings, like Sunday morning or Easter and Christmas musicals. Moments that church folks love, but new friends rarely find. Perhaps a concert in the park could yield some new friends. The church could even use its video or web talents for something other than its own high-tech worship service or electronic Yellow Pages ad. Honestly, there's no end to the creative ways these creative people can generate when the assignment is simply find new friends. When the goal is to extend love and belonging to those on the outside, a church community can look to its strength to find answers. Even if you insist that no such strengths exist, the effort to make friends is always available. Some aging congregations, honestly, they've lost their energy for service, or they struggle to present themselves well with music or technology. Their teaching voices may seem a bit dated as well, but all of us can love. In fact, sometimes the older saints are better at loving than anyone else. Likely because as parents and grandparents, they've had the most practice. So even if you struggle in functions like discipleship or evangelism, every church can become effective at building relationships. Since people are highly motivated by relationships, the effort you make to extend belonging to people can be a powerful catalyst for growth and evangelism in your church. Remember, people lined streets because of Jesus' healing capacity. They filled hillsides because he taught like no one else. The woman who crashed a Pharisee's dinner party did so because she had found the love and compassion she desperately needed. For these reasons and perhaps 100 more, real people came running to Jesus, and they still do. When you find your unique capacity as a congregation, aim it at people outside your doors. Trying to fix your weaknesses is exhausting and frustrating work, but pouring your best energy into your strengths will even help you find energy you did not know you had, and even bring new people who can help in some of those weaker areas. Your engine reveals what your church is made to be, and it will prove to be the element your guests will find most attractive. As you get ready to identify strategies for evangelism, think about some of these questions. Do the people of your church invite friends to come with them? What steps could you take to encourage them to do so? What impressions do people in your community have of your church? What are some of the most common reasons they might visit your church? To what degree does your church reflect the neighborhood around it? Are there certain people groups in your neighborhood that you could reach? So what steps could you maybe take to do so? Which of the following does your church do most effectively? Worship, build relationships, serve others, teach, evangelize? Would people who don't attend your church agree with the way you answer that question? So who in your church could help you better understand the gap between your church and the unchurched people of your community? What steps could you take to gain insight from those people? And what steps could you take to make your engine most visible to your community? Well, now it's time for you to begin building your evangelism plan together. But once again, let me remind you that in the Acts 2 journey, we're always trying to become the church of our vision. Make sure every step you plan to take will help you move in that direction. A strategy step that doesn't move you closer to your vision or underscore your values might be a great idea, but that's really all it is. When it comes to evangelism, you may think of a lot of ideas, but some may not connect to your vision as well as others. You need a plan to take you to the next level. So be sure that every step you plan will help you and your people live your vision. While most churches identify worship or fellowship as their primary strength area, evangelism is often the weakest spot. That makes the steps you design in this session extremely important. So as you consider your strategies for evangelism, think about steps you could take in the next 2 to 3 years that can help you fulfill your vision in this particular area. Might even want to revisit your I dream of a church where evangelism is statement to help guide you. In thinking about that evangelism strategy, be sure to find ways to help your people succeed. Simply trying to motivate them with the challenge to reach out to others, well, it hasn't been enough. So help your people be more effective by creating easy paths for them to take in reaching their friends. You know, an example of this, a number of years ago, I was sharing in this very session with a group of churches that had gathered leaders throughout the room. And I'd asked that question about their engine. What does your church do really well? And it was fun to listen to the dozen or so congregations represented in the room talk about the strength in this area or strength in that area. And it could just begin to see the light bulbs begin to go off in their thoughts about what might be or what they could do. But there was one church that was seated over here to my left that hadn't said anything. It was a table of about 6 or 7 very, very kind, nice people, most of them older. Pastor was well into his 60s or perhaps approaching 70 years of age. And they'd not said anything. And I looked at them in that moment wanting everybody to participate. And I asked them, so what about you guys? What do you do really well? What's the strength of your church? And they were silent for a moment, long enough that I felt bad that I put them on the spot in such a way as that. But finally, as if suddenly energized by a lightning bolt from heaven, the pastor's wife shouted out, "Funerals!" And the whole room burst into a respectful laughter. I said, funerals? Tell me about that. And so the pastor's wife began to elaborate. She said, you know, when we host a funeral in our church, our ladies prepare an incredible funeral dinner. And she said, the men of our church, you know, most of them, maybe they only have one suit or they don't have a lot of dress clothes, but they dress in their best and they come and they're just so kind and they do such a great job and ready to step up to serve as pallbearers if needed, whatever's needed. They're there to host people at the church. And she said, my husband, she looked at her pastor husband, she said, he's a good preacher on Sunday, but he's a great preacher at a funeral. And he kind of swung down in his chair a little bit with the realization that these were the kind of settings that brought out his best. Before I could even get there in my own thoughts, she said, you know what we could do? She said, we could call the local funeral home, and we could let them know that if they ever have a family come in who doesn't have the support of a local church and walking through that time of grief, well, we would host that. We would be glad to host them at our church. We could do the meal. Our men could be there to help usher and assist. And my husband would preach that funeral. We could turn this into a way to meet friends. And I asked her, as her enthusiasm was building, and really the rest of the room started to buzz with the idea, I asked her, I said, how often might that happen in your town? They're in a small community, but she said, you know, maybe once or twice a month, that could happen. I said, do you think you could do that? And immediately a strategy was born as they took what they could do well, even though some might chuckle or not be impressed by that. But I got to thinking, boy, what an opportunity. You never find people in a deeper time of need than when they're walking through loss. What an opportunity to love on people and to demonstrate the heart of a church for the suffering people of their community. A strategy was born simply by finding their vision, finding that engine, and beginning to let it drive their church to make new friends.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we got a chart on the next page.
Oh, turn over.
Yep.
Oh,
We got a chart to fill out.
oh boy.
So how will we engage new people? Okay. So 2 goals that I've got already written down that I know we're already in the process of doing. Number 1 is we're looking to expand the carnival for community days. The plan is basically to extend the carnival into the front yard. That solves a lot of problems for us, especially with the football players. So getting them out of that space would be wonderful, because I'm always afraid that we're going to end up in a liability case.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, we get to be a more engaging place for kids to be able to enjoy and have fun, which is going to be awesome. We're also going to be more intentional about what happens in this room during that time.
Now I know it's something we do for a day and a half once a year. But behind the scenes, community days is so much more, because I'm on the board for community days. And on top of that, I'm engaged with whatever they're doing month to month. And they want to grow, they want to do more things. And honestly, they have a bigger budget than we do for events that we can tap into for outreach.
Yes.
We don't have to pay for events to do outreach. We can just leech off of them. So it's like, we just had, what was it? We had the summer fun day. And they wanted to have a summer fun day. This is the first time they ever did it.
Oh, is that with all the bubbles in it?
That's all the bubbles, and everyone got sopping wet, and we all shot.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of water, and the carousel is open, and so it's like because every month I go to that meeting, I invite you guys. We have one coming up this Tuesday, 7:00, right over there. Come to the meeting. They would love to have more people there, because they love ideas, they love concepts, they love anything that they can get their hands on in order to make this annual event that we have even better. And we have been blessed beyond comprehension to be right here.
Yeah.
On top of that, and this was the first thing we ever did, we took the nursery and moved it from there into there. I bought blinds for that window because it never had blinds before. We put a rocking chair in there, and guess what? It's now a changing station and a mother's nursing area. Guess how many other places around here on community days has that? 0.
Yep.
We have lines of like 2 or 3 people with babies and moms right there waiting to use that room. You don't have to go to your car and change a diaper, or go to some, I don't know, in the middle of the road or something. I don't know where else they're doing it. I've had to do some interesting places with diaper changes, but the other thing to make,
Yeah.
the other thing to remember is
For sure.
they've got 2 bathrooms over there. We've got 2 bathrooms over here. We're a potty stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's like, okay, some folks are going to go over there to go to potty, and a lot of people are coming over here to go to potty.
And there's usually a line, and that's where you
And
can
there's
talk to
always a
people.
line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I did last year? That's all I did. I refreshed the bathroom and talked with people.
Yeah.
I got more stories. I got more connections with people. I got to fill out this report every single week. It asks me how many people I've connected with, and I'm like, I don't know. I just write down a number, honestly, at this point. But I'm like, how many new connections have you had? And I'm telling you, I get to see people from last year that are coming in. I'm like, especially like the teenagers, and I'm like, dude, you grew up so much.
Well, for what it's worth, the last couple of community days that they've had, the last couple of years, we've come here.
Yeah.
And yeah, it made an impression. So I was like,
That's good.
they're opening this church, letting people just come in, and I'm like,
Free water,
I know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's kind of unusual. It seems
free
like,
AC so they can sit down and cool
yeah,
off.
yeah. It's
Do
just
you
For
know-
the older people.
Do you know what I told people last year? And I mean this, and we're trying to get this under control so it's not as bad of a chaos as it was last year. So I've got my daughter in charge out there, and I've got my other daughter, my oldest out there, and my youngest in here. And their job is to make sure that the place stays organized and make sure everyone is engaged and stuff like that. So I've got people. People is like the key thing. If you don't have people to run something, it's not going to get run. It's just going to be chaos. But
Even though I wasn't designated, I would come in here and make sure that
yeah,
people that had left food, I would throw that away.
right.
Clean the tables up, you know,
But what did the
Paper
floors look
towels.
like?
a mess.
A mess. Do you want to know what charges me up so much?
having to clean
Couple
it up.
things really excite me about being a pastor in a church. When the church is a stinking mess because of an event,
Yes.
I love it. I love cleaning up after Christmas mansions. It's sticky and gross. I love having to figure out what to do with the carpet because I just dumped the entire pool of water on the floor because I'm a dummy sometimes. And then we had to pay to have someone clean the carpets. I love Lucius running around this morning.
Yeah.
It never bothers me to see kids like that. Because that just means your church is alive. I love kids. I feel like we watched The Neverending Story last night.
Oh, yeah.
And
first
Falcor,
one?
the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
My kids have never seen it, and I wanted to traumatize them. Artax.
The,
He comes back. He's alive, people. Okay, but the thing is that Falcor, he goes, I like children, and my son all day today is like, that was the creepiest thing I'd ever heard.
we own those movies.
There we go.
So
I like
Yeah.
chicken.
I got to rent them
to
for.
eat or what?
Yeah, exactly.
With ketchup?
Anyway, that event happens in September, and honestly, it's going to be the whole church. I write down whole church, but in reality, it's also the community. Half the people that run our games just walk in and say, "How can I help?" Sweet, I love it. Most of them are teenagers, so the youth in this community, they have gotten used to coming in here and helping out for a few hours. And it's because when they help out, they get free stuff.
Yeah.
So they're,
Yeah.
because honestly, what else are they going to do at community days? They're stuck here because their parents are here. So you might as well go help do a game and get something for it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how we get the kids in. That's our draw. Come help us out, and you get a thing. You know?
That's awesome.
But that also affects onlookers.
Oh yeah.
Because if someone who's not in the church, just walking by, sees all the youth coming in here, may get the impression the youth are going in and out of that church.
Yeah.
Why? So then they may show up and go, so what's so appealing about this church that the youth are coming in? They don't even realize they're just coming in here to get stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the optics.
Yeah.
Everything in religion's about optics.
Yeah, but it took us, 2 years before we finally decided to come and
Yeah.
visit. And
But
Oh,
see,
yeah.
been
the
Those
seed's
seeds were
planted.
planted,
Sometimes
yeah.
it takes a bit for the seed to germinate.
Seeds planted.
Yes.
I had a guy last year. Like I said, all I was
Leo
doing is
Wallace.
refreshing the bathrooms and talking to people.
Leo
And
watered the
I
seed.
said, and
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
standing there, and we were talking, and he's like, "This is a church," and I said, "Yeah, man, we have Sunday service and everything." He's like, and I said, "Here's our schedule." I mean, he hasn't come, but I'm like, casting
never know.
that seed, throwing it all out there. I mean,
Yeah.
You never know.
and so it's like, okay, let's cast wider,
For sure.
and you know. I love Christmas mansions. They're always cool. And that
Is that another one you've got on here?
well, no, I don't have it on there, but it's
Okay.
I mean, it's something we do
What
every
exactly
single year.
is a Christmas mansion?
So, it's gingerbread houses.
Okay.
We go out every December and we buy up probably about 80
Yeah.
gingerbread houses.
That's what you did last year.
Yeah.
You mean
and-
those kit things?
Yeah, the kits.
Okay.
And then the
Kinda
nice
like what
small.
we did on that.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
small.
yeah.
And the ones we've been buying recently have like 2 or 3 houses in the kit.
Okay.
And so what we do is the night before we'll have a team of folks that come in. Those are the folks that are like, I don't want to be around a bunch of people. So they'll come in and they'll just put the houses together. It'll just be a small group of folks and putting all 80 some odd houses together using the frosting or the glue or whatever we have. We always want to make it edible. We don't want to use anything that people shouldn't be
So
eating.
they're actually already put together
Yep.
when the kids get them.
So when the kids get there, the house is already put together.
Oh, okay.
And then,
So they get it.
and it's also on a cake pad,
Yeah.
cake pad,
Yeah.
the cardboard cake
We've
pad.
we've done those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
We
what
did that,
happens
we did
is
Minecraft. We did
No, it
there's
should-
all different kinds. Yeah.
so every
would know
year
the
we sit
electricity.
down and we figure out how much it costs for the houses because those things are crazy.
Yeah, they are.
And how much it's going to cost for the icing and the sprinkles and everything. And we basically put a number together. I think last year was $8.
Yes.
It was
Right.
$8, and we were like, "Oh man, it's way too high. People are not gonna." We had a full stinking house.
We ran out of houses.
We ran out of houses. We also have a cheaper option, which is cookies.
I was gonna say, yeah, like graham crackers. You could do that.
What happens is people in the church actually make simple sugar cookies,
Okay.
and they bring them in.
Okay.
And so what happens is if you don't want to spend $8 for that, you can spend like $4 and get some cookies. And then you get as much toppings as you want. And so you decorate them, and then what happens is they all get brought. We established this last year. They all get brought in here, and they all end up with numbers, not with names, and people get tickets basically. And then we have individuals who are judges, and they go around and they determine winners of different categories. This is Leah's baby, man. This is me just showing up and giving her support. Seriously,
That sounds like fun.
I MC the thing, and that's it. We also have Santa
Okay.
comes to visit, so there's
Oh,
an
really?
opportunity for Santa in pictures. And last year, and the year before that, we had toys. We had so many toys last year, we couldn't give them all away. So much. And we have the Christmas tree in there, and all the toys go around it. And it's like, isn't that like a pagan thing? Or I'm like, chill out. It's Christmas, y'all. We love Jesus. It's okay.
Yeah, when you.
It's like we have Santa Claus. It's okay. We had a family that I was doing marriage counseling with, who came to that, and I gave a very short salvation message, and there was 2 or 3 people that gave their life to Jesus that night. We have one family that started coming to the church because of Christmas mansions.
I tell you what, I tell my children this all the time. It's like, this world is so full of hate. We just need more love.
Just chill out.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's certain things.
Right.
There's certain things and images I will try to actively avoid and things like that, especially in the church. But I'm like, guys, it's Christmas, chill. But these are some of the things that we do on a regular basis. Now, if they wane out and they peter out and it's time for them to die, they will die. Like the Bears Den, we had an after-school program. It never really got off the ground. Man, did we spend too much money on that thing.
It was a wonderful idea, and it was a good outreach.
It was a wonderful idea, and there's a lot of reasons why it probably failed. But
There's
it
no
just
need to dwell on that.
there's no reason to dwell on that
Yeah,
at this
Move
point.
on.
So it's just a matter of figuring out what God is doing. I think that's what burned me a little bit from having all of these grand ideas that I get in the shower, because I'm one of those people that like gets a popcorn idea every 5 minutes, and then I'm like, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, no. Shh. Chill. Let's
I'm
wait and
curious
see.
if you guys have any ideas of something similar to community days or the Christmas mansion.
Well, look at your big screen here, and I'm thinking, what if you had like a movie night? You bring the kids in. Do
We've
you
done
do
that in there.
You've done that in
Yeah,
there.
they
Yeah,
have the big
yeah.
screen.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
last
true. I wouldn't even think about that. Yeah.
last year we did something called Summer Family Nights.
Yeah.
And it was hosted by the Bears Den
Okay.
after school program, because we were trying to generate interest in the after school program by doing like kids movies and everything. We have a popcorn machine right there,
Oh, nice.
a legit popcorn machine,
Okay.
and we got the popcorn and everything. And so it's like we have this stuff to do that. It's just we did it last year during the summer, and it was hit and miss.
Okay.
And so this year,
Well, summer can be hit and miss.
It
with
can
I
be.
was
all
saying we
kinds
need
of
to do it
stuff.
during the winter.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So,
Tried to.
we did do that one time. We did do the
Sean-
nativity story.
Sean came. Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I got like kids that can go hand out flyers. throughout the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
So
something like
movie
that.
night again, yeah. I had suggested that with the women to do it outside, put up a sheet for the
Yeah.
projection and, do something like that outside, and they didn't really think it would go over, so, yeah, outside anymore, there's chiggers,
Yeah.
there's mosquitoes and that
that's the
sort of thing that,
Well, and
it's
like-
not the funnest thing anymore.
Right now, the church does not have pest control. And the reason why is because
It's expensive.
we don't have any right now. So, and so it's one of those things like, okay, we're going to save some money by not doing this. We had it at one point in time when the food program left, it left with the food program and went over to where the food program was because you had to have it with the food program. But we don't have that much food here where rodents and such can get to it. But we don't pay for additional treatments like mosquito treatments or tick treatments or anything like that for the yard. We have a beautiful yard.
Yeah.
And I intentionally have companies come in and do it because they do a better job than I do. And I also have them do it because they have
So is there
liability
something
insurance.
that we could do in the yard to
So-
draw people in?
We could, and that's something we could do. And it would just have to be something that would have to be planned out. And there would have to be like a full plan of how that's going to work because stuff can't just be thrown together at the last minute. Also, if it's something we're going to do, we have to commit to it for a time period. Everything has to have an end date. And that end date has to be, okay, are we ending it now or are we going to continue it?
Yeah, right.
Because if you don't have a firm end date, you could end up perpetually doing things and it just costs money
Yeah.
gone. So Pastor Tom, our CFO, has a wonderful saying that Pastor Tom, I love you. I hate this saying, but it's true. If the money is not there, God is not providing. And it's probably not what you should be doing. No, he didn't say probably. He said it's not what you're supposed to be doing. He's a CFO. That's how CFOs think. And I see what he's talking about. And that's really what ended the Bears Den for my mind. Is it just was not going. And so certain things that we've done around here, I've tested the waters on them. But again, it's a conversation of, okay, so what do we do now? Other thing I have on my list here is the Christian counseling. The deadline for that is January 2029. And you're like, wow, that's a long way away. Well, I have to finish my schooling. I have to do 2 years. The finish of my schooling is 2026. I have to do 2 full years of counseling as a PLPC before I can even apply to be an LPC. I can't even start a practice until I'm an LPC.
Okay.
So the earliest that could happen is 2029. But that's something that God has put on my heart as a vision for what I'm supposed to be doing. So,
Well,
but that affects the church.
I think it'll be needed. Yeah.
That affects the church because then it's my time as the pastor. Now I'm bivocational. I mean, right now I'm technically bivocational because I'm a student, but in fact, when we're done here, I got to go do homework. But I'll be here till like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, jeez.
But that's just
Yeah.
part of it.
What about my idea that I brought to you before the meeting? I don't know if you want me to mention it now.
Go ahead.
My idea was to connect with other ladies in other churches in Conway, so that we can, not so that we can steal them, but we can still impact them. We can encourage them, build them up. Iron sharpens iron, so we can, work together with them on ways and ideas to reach the lost in this community. That was my idea, that I think would be great for evangelism, even though we would not be evangelizing to those particular people. It would be building them up and building us up so that we could do that,
Yeah.
you know, to help come up with other ideas. I mean, what our church has right now is a very limited idea of people to draw from, you know. We come up with some wonderful ideas though, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I don't know. We need to flesh that out more.
Oh, yeah,
think.
definitely.
Because
And you know my other idea that I keep throwing out there, the saturate.
I know it's on my radar.
He doesn't. He
I
gets-
don't what?
You get tired of hearing me
No,
say
I do
that.
not. I do not get tired of hearing it. I absolutely do not get tired of hearing it. So, but let's keep going, okay?
Okay.
It's been said that the five greatest needs of the human personality are significance, support, stability, stimulation, and self-expression. Connecting to God and participating in a church family are the best ways to have these needs satisfied. God wired all of us for connection. We need something to believe in, somewhere to belong, a way to behave, and something to become. Connecting to Jesus and to others who love Him is the best way to find life's greatest fulfillment. Everything starts with one's connection to God. Without that connection, none of us will ever be able to have the relationships on earth we were created to enjoy. Helping people find this connection is the primary reason your church exists. Nothing else truly matters if people aren't finding their way to God. Jesus' clear intent for His church was that we would be a group who encourages each other and loves each other. Prior to His ascension, He instructed His disciples to love each other. Clearly, Jesus knew that we would not only need relationship with Him, but also relationship with one another. But fellowship extends even beyond these critical relationships. Ultimately, through relationship, we connect to those outside the church and find that such connections are the key strategy in guiding others to God. So our second guiding question flows from the first. Remember, we've already asked, how will we engage new people? But now our second strategic question asks the natural follow-up to that question when it says, how will we treat them when they walk through our doors? Jesus said that people would see our connection to Him by our love. Well, think about that for a minute. People will figure out that we are a part of Him when we love each other the way He has loved us. How did He love? Sacrificially, unconditionally. Frankly, that's a tall order. But Jesus' love was equally amazing when you think about who He loved. The outsider was His key target. The broken, the mistreated, the forgotten, they received value and life-changing love from our Savior. Jesus loved those whom no one else loved. He didn't just occasionally cross over to that side of the street. He ate His meals over there too. In fact, Jesus' love for the outsider was a key reason religious people sought to kill Him. If our brand of love is a primary way people will see Jesus in us, it seems logical that who we love and how deeply we love them are the key ingredients. Did your "I dream of a church where fellowship is" statement make room for the outsider? How will your church grow if such people aren't seen and considered? Outward focus is the mindset of the growing and healthy church. Recall from our life cycle discussion that inward focus dominates the church that's in decline. If our focus in fellowship is dominated by relationships within the church, we may not realize the barriers we've created between us and the outsider. You see, most churches think of themselves as friendly, but as their guests will attest, what they really mean is that they're friendly to each other, or that they find their friends inside those walls. Relationships do need to be strong and healthy inside a church, but we must be intentional about aiming that love toward those we don't yet know. So a big part of your fellowship plan should include the steps you take to welcome people into your church. Everything from the welcome they receive at your door to your efforts to introduce them to your people and ministries that can strengthen their journeys are a part of this component. Remember, people often want to belong before they believe and become. Jesus extended love and belonging to people long before they became fully aware of who He really
Is that familiar?
is. He knew that through his genuine love, they would soon open their hearts to him and to the plan that he has for their lives. An Acts 2 church doesn't draw lines between themselves and those that they're trying to reach. Instead, such churches build bridges that can both take them to the lost and open the way for these friends to find Jesus among his people. So before you work on your strategy in this area, let's listen to some good advice on welcoming people into your church. First of all, a church should consider each of the places where it can extend welcome to its guests. These could include the parking lot, the church's entrance, the sanctuary or auditorium, and even as people exit. Each of these opportunities is important because you don't get many chances to make a lasting impression. Studies have demonstrated that on average, people form their impression of a church and even begin to decide whether or not they will return within the first 10 to 12 minutes of arriving. Wow, think about that. When you think about what happens in those early minutes, you begin to realize how important it can be to extend relationship to new friends as soon as possible. And in fact, studies that we have done demonstrate that the number one thing people are looking for when they visit a church is friends. Of course, the less church experience someone has, often the more rapidly they might decide that they have a negative impression. Unchurched people may feel a number of difficult emotions as they enter a church, so a really quality effort to care for them and to welcome them can make a huge difference. People with a church background may have come looking to hear the pastor speak or to see what your church is like, so these people likely will wait much longer to determine their interest in your church. That means if the average is 10 to 12 minutes overall, there are people deciding far more quickly than even that whether or not they want to return. Who are those who are so quick to judgment? Probably the unchurched. So entrance greeters have one goal: to make people feel welcome. And they should be trained to do so. They should have clear gifts of hospitality. Consider letting somebody else distribute bulletins so your greeters can be focused on extending a warm welcome to everyone who enters. Sanctuary and auditorium greeters can also fill the gap between the time someone enters this big room and the time the service begins. Along with ushers, they can help new friends choose the best seats, like those seats that are near a friendly face who might also be in their age group. These greeters realize that the Sunday morning experience can be uncomfortable for some, and they have the ability to help people feel more comfortable. Then there could be exit greeters who make sure that each person feels loved when they leave the church. With a warm farewell, they shape the final thoughts someone may have of the church. Exit greeters might also be available to assist guests with finding their children in the children's ministry or answering any final questions they might have before leaving. Keep in mind that these four areas most impact your guests on their first visit. The parking lot and the property's appearance, that front door experience, the cleanliness and attractiveness of your restrooms, and your children's ministries areas, and the warmth of the people they meet before the service begins. In fact, I think it's important to realize your church is only as friendly as the guy closest to me. So before you start with your fellowship plan, remember this. In the Acts 2 journey, we're always trying to become the church of our vision. Make sure every step you plan to take will help you move in that direction. A strategy step that doesn't move you closer to your vision or underscore your values might be a good idea, but again, that's all it is. You need more than just a few good ideas. You need a plan that can take you to the next level. As you consider your strategies for fellowship, think about the steps you can take in the next 2 to 3 years that could help you fulfill your vision in this area. Having a lot of plans can be helpful, but you'll want to prioritize no more than 5 or 6 steps as you'll be building strategies in the other 4 functions as well. In thinking about your fellowship strategy, focus your best energy on building connections with people both inside and outside your church. We'll talk about building relationships with God when we get to our strategy for worship.
All right.
I will say that I have loved when the kids draw chalk on that sidewalk. That is a wonderful greeting, you know, for anybody coming in, whether they're new or us, you know. I think that's awesome. They need to do more of that.
Last time they did that was with the after-school program, because that's what the after-school program did.
I don't know. It was out there not too long ago.
Was it?
Yeah, it
I
was
saw
this
some-
spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
so
spring.
Okay.
Somebody was out there anyway.
It was probably a week that Abby led kids ministry.
That could be. Mhm.
I'll about guarantee that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a saying that I always use. Paper has a handicap. And this is a newer concept. Paper has a handicap. Handicap is it can only be in one place at a time. So if you're gonna keep notes, you'll notice like I've started to keep one of these things with me a lot more. This is not actually the one I use. This is actually the oldest one that the church owns, and that's because I left mine on the pulpit all day on. So normally I have mine. It's got a little pin on it, and I'll write notes or whatever it is. And guess what? The notes that I write down on that thing are also available on my computer. They're available at home. They're available anywhere I go. They're available on my little pocket phone thing. My phone. That's what it is. My iPhone. It's all available because it's all connected. But I had written down some notes from my group counseling class this past week, and I went home, and then I ended up having to stay home for something, and I went, I need to do this homework, and I don't have my notes. Why? Because it was on paper. So guess what I did? I hopped in the car, I drove down here just to pick up a notebook, and then I drove back. My point is that we are like paper. We are not clouds. We can only be in one place at a time. In my case, on a Sunday morning, if we are having a conversation, like in the morning before church, my eyes are always glancing back at that door. Because the moment I see someone walking in and I don't recognize their face, and sometimes I don't recognize their face because I wasn't paying attention 6 months ago when they came here. Sorry. A couple times I made the mistake and said, "What's your name?" I just told you my name like last time we were here. Okay, help me out here.
Yeah.
That was 6 months
Always
ago, dude.
bad.
I've slept since then.
And I'm terrible at remembering names, but I love the idea of a door greeter.
But man,
Yeah.
I will stop any conversation I'm having. I need to just give me a minute, and then I'm looking at you because you're one of them that I'll be
Exactly,
talking
yes.
to in the morning, and I'll give me a minute, and then I'll
Yeah.
basically run to that back door, because
Yep.
here's the real reality. I love the statistic that they gave about the 12 minutes thing. That is entirely optimistic.
Yeah.
Most people who walk into a small church like this, especially if they've never been in a church before, are going to make their decision on whether or not they stay within the first 15 seconds. In many cases, that's before they even walk in the sanctuary.
Yeah. Well, a couple weeks ago, there were some people come in, and I just happened to be going to the bathroom as they were coming in, so I was greeting them, and they were very nervous, and I really thought they were going to walk back out, but thankfully they came on in, you know. But I don't know, had I not been there, would they have gone all the way in the sanctuary?
It's possible they wouldn't have, because we
Yeah.
might have scared them off.
I'll tell you, my first Sunday here, as I was walking up, Malachi opened the door for me, and he said, "Happy Sunday."
Aww.
And I was just like, "Oh," that was just so precious, you know.
So
That was quite a greeting.
I will tell you, one of the areas that I would love to have help with is that area, because that's one thing I'm like, especially when that timer goes on and it's the last 5 minutes, I have to be on stage,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that last 5 minutes, that's when everyone shows up,
Yeah.
or 5 minutes into worship.
I was going to say this morning, I thought it was just going to be you and me this morning, because when I pulled up, it was just your truck, you know, and I
Well,
was
no,
almost
Rick
late.
and Janet were here too.
No, well, yeah, they were here,
Mhm.
but I didn't see their car.
Rick and
Anyway.
Janet are always here like half an hour early, 45 minutes early sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
I love them.
I didn't see their vehicle though. That's really
We
odd.
tried to get here on
I
time.
think you saw his truck. You may not have seen my truck.
I parked next to yours.
You parked next to my truck. Well, his truck was there.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Yeah. And then it was like, bam, everybody was here, you know? So, yeah, everybody did come in like real close to the last minute.
Yeah.
so. But that happens.
Yeah.
My
I-
wife does that. She makes me so nervous sometimes. But I have faith that she's going to be there.
Yeah.
So it's the evidence of things not seen.
I can get here early, you know, to greet people at the door on occasion, you know.
Yeah,
I'd be willing to do it too if you
Because
wanted
they
to
would can
alternate.
take-
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Just to meet people
That's
at the
awesome.
door and
Yes,
say
thank you.
hello, and that helps me so much. Let's talk about discipleship real quick. I'm going to talk about discipleship because it's a 14-minute video, and I don't know that we need to be doing that whole video right now. So one of the things that Jesus said in the Great Commission is go and make disciples. What is a disciple? A disciple is someone who follows Christ. So
It's a student.
follows him, student, wants to become like Christ,
Yeah.
wants to learn from the master. And so discipling is like what we're doing, disciple makers, right?
Yes.
Why are we doing that? Why did I call it that? Well, because that's one of our discipleship ministries we have right now. We're doing a Bible study together, and it goes more in depth than what we can get on a Sunday morning. Sunday morning is designed not to go deep. Believe it or not, that's not deep. I dip my toe deeper sometimes, but I won't go so deep that I can't have people that have just walked in the door not go with me
Sure.
on the message. I had someone once tell me they hated Sunday morning because no one ever preached deep on Sunday morning. And I looked back at him and I said, Sunday morning has a purpose. That purpose is to be an open space for anyone to show up from anywhere and be able to hear the Word of God.
Yep.
It's not designed to go deep. That's not the purpose. This is preaching, not teaching. So, is there an element of discipleship in Sunday morning? Yes, there's absolutely discipleship in Sunday morning. But it's not going to get that more specific in depth and teaching and things like that. So, when we look at discipleship, I actually consider that I use it. They have one model here, and I have another model that I've been using for years. Discipleship is a completely separate area of the church from the Sunday morning experience. This is an encounter experience. This is a discipleship experience. And they are distinct. They're different. And so what we've done, and you and I have had to sit down about this several times because Marlena started up the women's ministry. And it's done this.
Oh, yeah.
There's been peak times, and sometimes been drier. Some have been wetter. Some have been drier. And I said, you know what? I believe what we need to be doing is a discipleship for everyone. And the reason why I stole your time, see, there's that pastor leadership again.
No.
The reason why I stole your time, which would have been this time, was because I know people are off on Sunday for the most part. So could we have done this on Wednesday night? We could have, but the last time I did something on Wednesday night, it was me and my kids. The last time I did something on Wednesday night, it was just me and my two daughters. So I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. So let's go with what we know. And so it's one of those things where we have to come together, share ideas, and figure out what we're going to do.
Like you were talking about, you were talking about what to do with women's ministry next.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
We'll have to work through some of that.
Yeah.
You know, is it better to do it this way or that way? I haven't prayed on it. I'm sure you have,
Yes, I have.
but I have not.
Well, exactly. I just presented it to you
So-
5 minutes before.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's part of the process that I have for instituting ministries. Share an idea with me, and I'm probably not going to say yes right away. I may have done that in the past, but I'm not going to do it anymore. Been hurt too much. Because I think something's a good idea and it's not a great idea. Does that make sense? So, all right.
It was a great idea. It was.
To do this?
No,
What?
the Bears did.
Oh, I'm not stuck on the Bears Den.
Okay. All right.
I'm fine.
You're over it.
I have shelved that for now. Because
One
I don't
thing
know that
think
it's over.
We could benefit from, whether it's you or someone else, is a youth minister. And I know you've talked about that in the past. And maybe that's something that could happen on Wednesday nights, is to start getting the youth involved, even if it's just like your kids and his kids, you know.
Yeah. And I've mulled that around. I've had people say that to me before. I've not really looked into whether or not that's something I would want to do at this point, mainly because it's July and I've already got so much on my plate all the way through the beginning of August that I don't have headspace for it at this point.
Well,
I have a limitation.
I'm not thinking within the next month, you know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you know, maybe the first of the year or after or whatever. you
Well,
know.
and that's something we've done in the past. We did have a youth pastor when I got here, a children's pastor when I got here, and then they left after I got here. They were so burnt out, though. They were so burnt out because they were basically running the church while the interim pastor was here, and they were so burnt out. They were done, and I understood that. But at the same time, when you looked at the youth group we had, the youth were not from Conway
Well, right, yes.
nor Phillipsburg.
Yeah.
90% of them were from Lebanon.
Well, we need to draw from the school here and anybody that's being homeschooled.
Right.
You know, we can't overlook them too, you know.
Right.
The homeschool kids and
The other thing to keep in
And-
mind, and this is something that I'm becoming a very good believer in, is questioning whether we can provide a better experience than what someone else is already doing. Does that make sense? So, for instance, Sunday morning, discipleship, all of that stuff when it comes to being Pentecostal and Assemblies of God and all that, wonderful. But why do students go to youth group? They don't go to youth group right now for that experience. They go to youth group because all their friends are there and they're having some discipleship time.
social.
It's
time.
more social than anything else. So, what is the benefit of us adding another social time into what is already a saturated environment
Well,
on
that
Wednesday
social
nights?
time could be a lesson or something can be the underlying to where, you know, they don't realize that they're soaking in morals and
But
the way that
here's
Christ
something to think about, and this is
Right.
something I tested this summer with Elizabeth. Her best friend, probably my future son-in-law, goes to the church right across the tracks over here, crossing over Baptist Church. We love their family. They're awesome. They've got a great church over there. Elizabeth went to their youth group on Wednesday nights. And you know what? She has friends over there. That's established. And what they teach on Wednesday night is not blasphemous or sacrilegious or anything like that. Is it Pentecostal? No, because they're Baptists. I get that. Is it moral? Yes. But what gets Elizabeth over there isn't that.
Right, yes,
It's the friendships. It's the relationships.
yes. Well, we want to
So-
bring them in for what they will come.
So I'm looking at, so I tend to look at youth group and things like that in that perspective of, okay, why are we doing this? What is the benefit of us doing it rather than me going, why don't you guys go there? Because I can stand up on that pulpit all day long and say we're not in competition with other churches, but am I willing to send my kid over there?
That's true. I see what you're saying.
The
there.
moment, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The moment we start a youth group, we may not be in competition, but we are vying for the same people in that red water.
And if they're already comfortable and having a good time over there, why would they come over here?
They're not going to come over here.
Exactly. Except the dad would make them, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why my daughters came.
So, yeah. Perhaps that's another way that the community can come together. Like I was saying with the women,
Mm-hmm.
you know, meeting and connecting together, you know, the same way with the youth, you know, where they would go over there,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
So-
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And we could talk, we'll talk more about that in process. But
Yeah.
when it comes to discipleship, what I feel we need to focus on is, yes, taking care of the people that are here, reaching out to the people that are our friends, and discipling them. Discipleship at home is so important. But that's where I'm at on this. It's like, can we do a as good or better of a job than what they're doing already? Do we need to do this? Because the reality is that we don't have the capacity to do everything. So do we need to do everything? Now, if we, on Sunday morning, like, your kids are here now, and I'm like, awesome, wonderful. So now I've got the potential of a youth group of 4. Well, I think that's a great number of students to take to camp. I will take if you want them to go, I will take your kids to camp. And we will have a blast at camp. They will be blessed beyond comprehension. They will come back spirit-filled, I guarantee you. It's going to be awesome. But am I really doing them justice by just sticking them in the room with the people they already see on Sunday? So that's always my question. It's like, okay, because the reality is we're not big church. We are a small church in a community. So we need to work as a church in a community. Our biggest outreach of the year, we have one outreach of the year that is our outreach, which is the Christmas mansions. We've got the painting parties, which are starting to get going with the women's ministries.
Yes.
It's incremental. It'll get there. I want to keep going because I think it's got potential. But what's our biggest outreach of the year? Community days.
Yep.
And we don't run it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I don't have to do any of the administrative work to make this thing happen, and we get all the benefit? Yeah, I'm all over that. So, would I love to have a youth pastor here? Sure, I'd love to have a supporting pastor here. It'd be great. But right now we don't need it. We don't need them yet. If I brought someone in here, honestly, I think they'd be bored. That, or they'd spend a whole lot of money that we don't have.
I get it.
What about a men's
You
group?
can move on.
So that's been a discussion for a while, because we have a women's ministry. My key thing is that if there is a men's ministry that's going to happen, I don't want to lead it. Does that make sense? I know everyone expects the pastor to lead the men's ministry.
No, I
in
don't.
a lot of ways, but I'm kind of going, I don't want to lead it. I want to be able to, my role, my belief is that my role is to support the ministries and to train up leaders and help keep leaders accountable. So if there was a person that would be like, I think I'd like to try this thing. I'd be like, all right, let's try it.
This restaurant over here,
Yep.
how late are they open?
7.
On the weekdays?
Weekend.
Just the weekends?
They're only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Because I was thinking, I've seen other places for like men. They have like an ice cream gathering where they get together, they order shakes and ice cream, and they pray and they encourage each other and they talk about stuff. And it's almost always encompassing food of some kind,
Oh yeah.
which is always very it's enticing. Two, it's just a good time to get together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. There's no real place here that has.
Rocking
Like-
chair.
The rocking
7
chair.
Okay.
Yeah, the rocking chair. They've got. You could even go back in that back room.
Yeah, they typically do that.
And they're open till
Neighborhood Watch is always there. They're open till like 9.
Yeah.
when? I mean, just whatever. I mean,
We used when
sometime during the week, Tuesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
whatever. Not a Friday because
Well,
people
if you're just gonna have
like to do
ice
family
cream-
things on Friday.
yeah.
Type stuff. You could do it here. You know.
We could do it here, but that ends up becoming more of a logistical thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Meeting in a neutral place is always good because then
yeah,
other people who are not part of this fellowship
Yeah.
may see that and go, "Hey, what's going on?"
You'd be
And it's-
surprised the ears that
Oh, yeah.
that listen in.
Yeah.
So
Oh yes.
and
yeah.
I love the idea of meeting people out and doing that out. I love that idea. It just hasn't come into reality yet, with anyone really getting behind it and all that fun stuff. So if there's anyone that would be like, let's do this thing and make a plan, let's get it going.
What about game night?
Game nights are good. You know what Rick has?
Board games. What?
He has his own pond.
is Rick.
Stocked pond. Rick and Janet, the lady and gentleman that sit
Is it in front of me?
sit in front of
Okay,
Marlena.
okay, so I'm
He has his own
forgetting
stocked
names.
pond.
Okay.
Fishing?
Fishing. I know you like hunting.
I can't fish.
Now you can,
I can throw a line.
Look. You can fish his pond. Every time I cast my line in, I pull out a perch. Every time.
I would be
that would
very
be a lot.
surprised.
You know, my kids have wanted to go fishing, but he doesn't fish, so
I went
They've
fishing
never-
with my kids on Saturday.
they've never been fishing.
Sean loves to fish.
Yeah.
You ought to take him fishing.
I would invest in fishing stuff.
You would not
For the
have to.
children.
Rick has stuff. I have stuff. We would share stuff. I have under my solar panels, I have like the Wormtopia.
Oh yeah.
And my son goes out there and digs up all these worms, puts them into the 5-gallon bucket, and we go out to the river or wherever we're going, and we basically feed the water. But
Feed the fish.
but last time, I mean, we caught 16
Wow.
16 perch.
So it was catch and release.
No. We brought him back to his house and we cooked him up and ate him.
Oh yeah.
How big are we talking?
I mean, the pond is about
No, the fish.
the fish. I mean, most of them are, about that big. So
Oh, yeah.
you get a fillet about that big, but for
Yeah,
perch,
you
that's the
can
right
save 'em while
size.
you freeze
But he's
them,
also
and you have
got
a big
he's
fish
also
fry.
got catfish in there, and he's got crappie in there. He's got all sorts of stuff in there.
Catfish? Did you say?
Yes.
That's our favorite.
Crappie and perch.
Yeah. I never did like catfish.
Is there bluegill in there? There's got to be bluegill.
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But
They're fun to catch.
But it's stocked. They keep it stocked.
Wow.
You're not a fisherman.
And right now, because of how
I've-
often they
I've
go
done some
out,
fishing, but I was
it is
a lot younger
self-stocking
and I
at this
don't have
point.
anything.
In
Yeah, I
fact,
don't
when
have
we went
anything
out in
like that.
when we went out that it was in
I
an
just love
it was
to
October or
fish.
November. It was
I
really
prefer
really
swimming,
cold.
so.
My sons will tell you it was freezing. We were out there an
We had
hour,
a pond when I was
maybe
growing
an
up,
hour,
and
because they were
had
freezing
big
cold.
catfish.
And yeah,
We
we
would put Limburger cheese
just-
in
Mm-hmm.
to draw them in, and they would go
and
around
that and the 16 or
harvest
15 or
the-
16 we
harvest
got.
the catfish.
We had to we put back like just as many of them because they were too small. We just tossed them back in. So, see, he's interested now.
Uh-huh.
He's like, maybe,
You know, it'd be kind of fun.
It's an
to,
opportunity for me to bond with the children.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, see, I think it would be fun to have like a fishing thing. I would not be interested in it. I'm not a fisherman.
Yep.
Well,
But maybe,
he's talking to men, I
We,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well-
maybe the women
Like-
could put together like haystacks or something. We could have like
Once a
be
once a
fun.
month, or like
Yeah.
And I have one,
Like a fit.
been trying to find a way for Sean to get connected. That would
a
probably do
fishing
it.
Saturday,
it'd be fun.
and then game night, and then a men's meeting, a rocking chair.
I mean, even if we went like once a quarter,
yeah.
it would be something. Because what we're doing is basically we're asking men to change their life schedules. Just like with the women, you're asking them to change their life schedules. It's like, you don't understand. I've got so many hours of work I gotta do. I got so many hours with my kids that I gotta do. Because it's like, okay, I have to intentionally block out this time in my schedule.
Is it worth it? Is it?
Yeah.
And, you know, we just came up with 3 things:
Yes, we did.
men's meeting, fishing, game night.
Yep.
Okay. Every quarter. First month of the quarter we can do one. Second month of the quarter we can do the other one. Third month, and then rotate, and then keep going.
Well, there again, I was saying the 5th Sunday, men could do something if you wanted it to be.
Well,
just
if you want to
men.
go fishing, it's got to be in the morning, so that's not going to work.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So Saturdays. See, we used to do when I first got here. They had a Saturday morning men's prayer breakfast, and it was me, the former children's pastor,
And the church smelled like bacon.
and 2 men
Where?
Here.
right in
Here?
here,
Okay.
and 2 men that went to the Baptist church up the street,
Okay.
and nobody else from the church. So guess what Pastor Scott did? Well, the children's pastor left when his wife and him resigned, and then they resigned the high school that they were working at, and now they live in Marshfield. So they really had moved on. They were ready to start having kids and making a family. I think she's got like 7 of them now, but that's not actually possible because I haven't been here that long. But
Wow.
it ended up being me and 2 men, a father and his son. Now you're thinking father and a young son. No, the son is in his 60s.
Oh.
And I love Keith. He's awesome. He's one of the guys in the community that I can like. I know I haven't seen him I see him maybe 2-3 times a year now. He used to work for me at LCS, but I know I can call him up and be like, dude, I need some help with this, and he's on it. And Brian, his dad, he's got a lot of health issues, but he would show up to stuff. But the men's ministry at that time, the men's prayer breakfast was going nowhere. The men from the church were not coming. They were not interested. And it was once a month on a Saturday morning in here. They'd bring in their, we have a little like burner thing. I think it's under the counters in here. They'd make up scrambled eggs and they'd cook up bacon on the cast iron, and so we'd have bacon and eggs and biscuits and gravy, and it was all well and fine, and we would do a Bible study together, and then that was it. But that was also a very different time in our church.
Mm-hmm.
That was me coming in and things just going, because the old church was dying.
Mm-hmm.
So the old church died, and we've been planting ever since. We pruned,
How long ago was that?
gosh, 3 years, 4 years. When did we get here? We got here in 2022.
Okay. Oh,
Is that
golly.
true?
I thought it was 20. But
No, we got to Springfield in 20. So we got here in July of 21.
Okay, because we got over there.
We
in-
moved here in April of
April.
2022.
22 or 21?
22. Because I got fired Veterans Day of 21.
There was
Okay.
one other man that came, but he also had he continued to come to the men's prayer breakfast because he lived right over here. But he started going to another church because his friends were out there. It was a Cowboy church. And he passed away of cancer, and I kept up with him for a long time until he passed away. But yeah, it was just a very different season than what we're in now. I think right now we're at that point where we're starting to finally get footing. And so I love the idea. It's just a matter of motivating it and making it happen and picking dates and
See what happens.
changing schedules.
Pray about it.
So pray about it, you know. So yeah.
Janet, what's his name?
Rick.
Rick.
So
I
fishing
can't remember
morning,
that.
Yeah.
game night.
And then
And
there's Eric
men's
and his
meeting.
wife that's in the back. What's her name?
Behind me.
Yeah, in the back.
The men's meeting.
Chris.
I think the men's meeting should be after work
It's Chris.
during the
I don't
week.
think It's Christine.
One day
But it's
during the week, and not in conflict with
something
anything
similar
else.
to that.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are great days for that. You know, a lot of people Monday morning, Monday day, Monday work. Oh God, first day of the week, they don't want to do that. Tuesdays are not bad. Wednesdays is usually in conflict with other Bible churches. And
Yeah, Wednesday's tough.
studies. Tuesdays and Thursdays are great days. Fridays they want to spend time with family. Saturdays is party night, whatever.
Do you know what I do on Friday? That is my Sabbath. You know what I do on Friday? Nothing.
Yeah. Friday, whole day.
Yeah. No work, no school. I spend time with family. I spend time in the Word. I spend time reading. We'll watch a movie together or something like that. That's our family time. And that has come about because if we don't put that on the calendar, we'll just be busy.
Yeah.
And we won't have time for our family or each other. So, my wife still goes to CrossFit on Fridays. Bless her heart, but she
go with her.
But
finds
that's
that
something that is,
she finds that resting.
yeah,
It is. It's a relief. It's a stress
it's something
relief.
for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might like to watch a
Kinda.
movie, but she likes to exercise.
See,
What? I've never discouraged you from
I
that.
know, but
You
that's
know-
how it is for me. It's like
No, it was Friday.
like,
We
I
went
can
fishing on
breathe.
Friday. We went fishing on Friday because it was the 4th of July event, the 4th of July thing, and Leo went to the 4th of July thing. You did that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was gonna have us all go, all of us. We were all gonna go,
We were all there.
and my boys went. I really wish we could go fishing. I said, we should go fishing on the 4th of July.
You got out of it.
Yes, I did.
that's why you're
I
walking
got
fine.
so much candy.
Because there was so much legwork that day.
I
I
am still sore.
we should have gone fishing. That's the other wonderful thing about fishing is right there in the morning, and you can avoid all that morning stuff. But I was up at
But
5.
they-
We
they
were up
have
at 5
CrossFit in the
a.m.
evening, so
We were up at 5 a.m. We went up to the Niagara River and gave the river some worms. So
Yeah.
anyway, gosh, we got a lot left. I don't want to belabor you on this. So this is what we're gonna do. I am going to assign the rest of the assignments. I'm going to assign the rest of this as homework. You guys can read this. This will give you kind of the nuts and bolts of what's going to be said in the video. If you guys want access to the videos, I can get you access to the videos. That's easy enough to do. They're all on Google Drive. You can watch them on your phone or you can watch them on the computer, whatever. But the rest of this, I would highly recommend you guys just go through it, read through it, make some notes down, and then we talk about it as we go along.
So this whole thing was supposed to be for tonight?
Yeah, all the way
No,
through
we-
page 66.
Really?
Oh, okay. 66.
all the way through
Yeah.
page 66.
Yeah.
I was
because
gonna
there's
say,
1 week
wow.
left. Yeah. No, no, that's only.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I need
Yeah.
that.
No,
I was
That
gonna
printed on the wrong printer.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was thinking.
That was supposed to print on my printer.
There's another.
Yeah.
Got this big old chunk of paper. It's like,
staff.
Well, he's in
Come on,
double
staff.
work.
I
Yeah.
was like,
This is all stuff for camp. And then, of course, the wonderful ice check.
oh yeah.
So,
Oy vey.
any camper being checked for lice at camp will be charged $2 to be paid by the church, aka we gonna be checking it. So, their qualifiers, you have to be medical of some sort. So Leah's
be
gonna check
checking?
them. Leah's gonna check them before we leave.
Oh, she can do that too.
Yeah, she's technically medical. She's dietitian. But you know,
Nurse.
it's true.
I'm a nurse.
Will you be there for drop off on Monday morning or Monday afternoon? See.
Time?
What is the schedule?
I'm a CNA. That's medical.
That's medical.
Yeah. You'll be dropping them off, so you want to do it, you can do it. So
Not hard.
push hair around, look for bugs.
Yeah. yeah.
I've done it before, but I can't sign it, so
Okay.
Take a comb and just go.
Well,
Yeah, you're good.
yeah.
well, yeah.
Or you know,
Well,
tongue
Leah's-
depressors.
Leah's got more education behind her than I do.
Leah has got so much information. She's had to deal with lice with our kids so many times.
Oh, we've had kids with lice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm going to actually